Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I am going to do a Q&A today about some of the questions that you guys have had in my last video that I did for the how to remove and switch Funko Pop heads. So yes, those questions are down in the comment in the last video, but in case anyone did not see them, read them for any reason, I figured it would just be easy to do a whole video on the Q&A for it and basically just answer them here. So let's get right to it. Alright, so the first question I have is, does this affect the paints at all? So for me, when I did it, it did not affect my paint, and I don't foresee it affecting the paint. The only time or reason I could see it affecting the paint is if you maybe leave the Funko in water for a long time, but I imagine that and would hope that, you know, Funko made their pops, their paint, very durable, so it's going to last a while. So I would hope that no, it does not happen, affect your paint at all. But for me, it did not affect my paint, and I had no problems with it. All right, next question. Do you know if this method damages the flocked pops? So I honestly cannot answer that. I have not tried this on a flock pop before, and I haven't done this since. So I honestly can't answer that question for you. Yeah, I can understand that you want to do some type of like flocked pop, you know, switch with the body and everything, or the heads, but I would say like the best way to test that out would be getting some type of toy that has the same soft velvet feel on it and see how that feels after you take it out of water instead of trying it on the flocked pop itself. Alright, next question. Just asking, not trying to offend you, why the hell would you actually want to do that? So, good question, and I'm not offended by that by any means. So it's been a huge thing recently, well, at least from what I've seen in the past year or so, that people have been making customized Funkos, and a lot of people tend to make them and resell them. That was not my intentions for wanting to do this. My reasoning of essentially why I wanted to swap heads and bodies and all of that was for actually my wedding cake toppers. And Jon Snow, so I used him and Edward Cullen's body, the Tuxedo Edward. So this is actually the two that I swapped, and this is the final creation of swapping. And so I needed essentially to use Jon Snow's head with Edward's body because Jon Snow's head is the only closest Funko Pop that looks like my husband. So this actually was great, and it turned out wonderful, and it has been fine. You know, it's glued on there. And as I had said in the last video, that I had come to find out when you are swapping heads, is sometimes the discs are, so these down here, are sometimes like a little bit, they're not going to be the same size. And that was the issue that I had ran into with Jon Snow's head, at least, was his disc is a lot bigger than the other size Funkos. And so I had mentioned in that video that I'm going to have to try some other type of way to remove it. And I actually did. So instead of removing the disc on this, I actually had to completely pull out his body. And so the peg was just left, like where the neck area is. And so I actually didn't remove this. I just completely removed the peg and just popped it back in. And so removing the peg, depending on the body and everything, can be easier for some than others. And so just kind of giving an idea, which I'll kind of just remove this. I'll just pop it out. So I literally had to remove the whole entire, you know, peg. And so this is what it's going to look like without the disc on it. And so literally I just popped it on the Jon Snow one with the tuxedo and literally just popped it in, and you're good to go. And it moves. So this method might make it a little bit, you know, wobbly, and it's not wobbly, but it's not going to keep it on as well as it would if you're like removing like the head from the disc and re-gluing. So when you're doing that, if you want it just to stay extra tight in there, you'll probably want to add a little bit of some adhesive glue or some type of glue just to make it stay in there pretty well. But again, getting back to what I was saying, John, his head's been pretty well on there, but again, it's not like I'm like fidgeting with these and playing them and removing them. So answering your question, that is why you would want to do it. Next question. What was the name of the glue? I wasn't able to read your phone. I am so sorry. I actually went back and rewatched that video and I really quickly showed what it was and I didn't even say what it was, so I do apologize for that. The glue that I showed in the video was called E600, and that one I had a really hard time finding in stores, and so I basically said, all right, I'm just gonna say forget the E600 and I'm just going to use super glue, and pretty much super glue wound up working fine for me. So if you can't find the E600, just use super glue. That worked fine for me. How can I make a normal Funko a bobblehead? Good question. I actually have not tried that, but I kind of have an idea of how that would work. So I have my little bobblehead Groot right here. And so when looking at this, it has obviously the same components as a regular Funko. So same exact head, but it's just missing the disc that is on the other ones, as I'm going to show like on Edward right here. I'm actually going to remove the bottom real quick. So it is just looks like it's literally missing just the disc on the Groot. And so what you could do is obviously you would remove the head from the body, except for you would want to remove this disc portion as well. And with the body, I'm just going off of how it looks on here, is you would want to find, and you can, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but you can see there's a spring in there. And you're going to want to have to try and find some type of spring that you're going to attach to here. And that way, you know, once you get the spring on, then it makes it easier to make a bobblehead. So I think that is the biggest challenge, is finding a spring. If you can make one out of wire, great. If you can find one from another, you know, bobble Funko, great. But you're going to definitely need a spring. And this one has I've actually had to re-glue this on because the glue melted off, so I had to re-glue it down. And it is a flat, essentially, I mean, it's a flat little surface that's in there. I can't explain it without, like, literally getting up in there without seeing, and it's hard to see in there. But you do need a flat surface to hold the actual head flat, and then, I mean, it's just a whole nother mechanism in there that's, I can't explain, obviously, that I'm having a hard time explaining it now. But, as I stated, you would probably just need to find something that's a spring, and then without the disc on it, you would put it on, and it would kind of bobble there, I guess. So that question's beyond me. I apologize. So last two questions. How do you put the head back on? So again, it really depends on which method you would done, basically. So if you did the method where I showed in the video, my last video, where the disc is gone and it's still on the body, you're going to go ahead and apply some type of cohesive glue. So whether it's going to be the E600 glue or super glue like I used, and you're going to go ahead and put the glue on the inside of the disc area and then as well on the head inside. And you're just going to go ahead and pop that back on the head with the disc, and literally you're going to want to leave it to dry overnight, so that way you know that it's like super dry and it's good to go. And so that's one way to do it. If you do it the other way, where like right here I have the whole peg pulled out, you're just going to literally go ahead and pop it back in, and that's that. If you do find it not as sturdy, if it is a little, you know, it's just not on there as well, you could apply glue to the peg, and so that way it's really stuck in there, you don't have to worry about it. But again, then you're probably not going to be able to turn the head. And then last question, does it work to change a bobblehead with a normal Funko? So I'm going to use Baby Groot as an example again. So if this is pretty sure what you're asking me is taking like a bobblehead like this and sticking it on a regular Funko body like this. That I believe could be a tricky one because you are initially missing this disc that it does not have, the bobblehead doesn't have. So again, it goes to the size of the discs. If the size is the same size, then yeah, you should be fine. You're going to have to obviously remove the head completely from the whole bobble body. And then with something like this, you're going to have to go ahead and remove the disc from the head and the body. So that could be, it's not going to be tricky. You'll just remove it. And you're going to go ahead and just apply glue and literally applied on there, like exactly how I said with either the E600 glue or with super glue. So that is essentially how I could see you doing that. But again, it comes down to, is that disc going to be the same size? But pretty much that was the few questions that I had, and I hope this helped everybody. And any other questions, please feel free to comment below. I will answer them. And thanks again for tuning in, everyone. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Thanks.